Let's begin.
Hey there, scary story fanatics. Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. Tonight, I want to introduce you to something a little different. A truth about the real me, behind the mask. So, settle in and get ready for some more of the terrifying truth about my past. Another uncovered and very real horror. My personal true story. The Memory Man of Dead End Drive.
For those of you that don't know who I am, or those of you that do and haven't heard from me in a while, allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Sabian Lockhart, and I live in upstate New York with my wife and my daughter. I know that I said I would never do this to myself, my family, again. For those of you who know of my past experiences with online stalkers, you may be wondering why I would indeed walk this same path once again. Well, I didn't want to actually, for a long time. However, my memories and duties as a human being refused to let me deny the truth of it all any longer. Now, for reference, before I began my adventure as a narrator on YouTube and the like, I was simply a fan. I know I've told all of you this many times before, and it's always been the truth. My first step began with the investigation of a well-known creepypasta and its realistic elements. Unfortunately, I found exactly what I was looking for, and what ensued was a torrent of stalking, cryptic messages, unsolved murders, and an end to it all that I hope will last the rest of a lifetime. If you want to know more information regarding this life event, I will leave a link in the description below. Yes, it's all true, and spans an experience that lasted a little over 3 years, so the compilation of these reports is quite long. However, by the end of it all, I was left with questions that I did not seek answers for the person that had been stalking me and my family had finally gone silent, whatever the reason, and I decided to leave well enough alone and never look into the dark and mysterious again, because something evil within may begin to look back. Now, even knowing that, even if all that happened to you, would you be able to let another person suffer just to avoid such a catastrophe again? This is the question I've been forced to ask myself, and though some of you in a similar position may be able to find the strength to walk away, I simply cannot. In fact, I may already be too late as it is. You also may be asking yourself if what follows has anything to do with the experiences that I've just described. Honestly, I don't know, but I don't think so. That stressful time of my life was recent, only a few years behind me now. This, what I'm about to tell you, happened to me when I was 7, and as I've already said, is 100% true. I used to live in Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania. Yes, as some of you know, this is the home of the Locust Lake stories, and various other tales from Halstead and similar surrounding areas. When I began writing, I went with what I was told and wrote about what I knew. Sure, tales of supernatural monsters, demons, ghost restaurants, and the like are fabricated and entirely entertaining fiction, at least I hope. But much of the places, the names and descriptions of people, and even certain situations, such as the music festival that had taken place in the background of one story, were all based on true places, people, and even experiences. So, when I tell you I used to live on the same road as the site of the real Locust Lake, this should not come as a surprise. It's a dead-end dirt trail that extends about a mile up the side of a mountain, sporting very few houses on either side of its length, and a privately owned lakeside campground at about the halfway point. Just before the base of the drive leading up to that lake was my house and where I lived. I didn't live at the top of this steep and, frankly, very tiring road, but I lived far enough up to where I could barely see the bottom from my parents' driveway. My friends, Jason and Heather, who once lived next door to me, had moved away not too long before, about a year or so beforehand. Additionally, no children were living in the few houses up the road from mine either, so once the 3 kids that lived at the very bottom of the road had entered their driveways, ending the last leg of their school commute, I walked the remainder of my journey alone. What you really need to understand is the isolation of this part of the country. The town we lived in is so small, it doesn't even appear on a map. There are a few houses, but the township on Google Maps does not actually exist unless you type it in by name, which honestly is odd in itself, but I digress. This place is the backwoods of Pennsylvania, and though my parents have always loved me deeply, they had no problems with me walking up this isolated dirt path by myself after school. And to those of you that are still shaking your heads, keep in mind the year is 1989. And although there was a big push for child safety after a recent string of murders from Bundy and the like, most parents, especially those isolated in the mountains, were still unaware of the real dangers. Even back then, I was pretty naive myself, but I was smart enough to at least remember what I was having drilled into my head in school, to not take anything from strangers. By the time I had reached my house, I was pretty tired, but at least the roof was looming through the trees up ahead and the driveway was nearly in sight. As I stopped to catch my breath, I heard the all too familiar sound of gravel under tires behind me, and they were fast approaching. I turned, looked, stepped to the side on the right, allowing them to go by, and as it grew closer, I saw it was a large white vehicle. And closer still, saw it to be a van. And yes, I realize how cliche this is nowadays, but back then, and at least to a 7-year-old me, this didn't register any alarms or warnings. Even when the van slowed and then stopped beside me, showing it was a windowless utility van, I still retained no fear. The man in the driver's seat leaned over and rolled down the passenger window, and I stood there, waiting for this man I had never seen to ask me a question, as I assumed he would. And indeed, he did. The man greeted me with a hello and asked if I needed a ride. Before I could answer, he offered to take me back to his house if I wanted to have ice cream. Again, I still wasn't alarmed, even though I should have been, because he was still on the other side of his vehicle, sitting in the driver's seat. However, I did remember what I was told, and I refused his offer, pointing to my house and telling him that I only lived right there, and I thanked him for his offer. The man simply said, "Suit yourself," and rolled up his window and drove off. I actually never saw him again, and even thought to myself that I was proud, but likely could have taken his offer if I wanted to, thinking the chances of the first person to stop and offer me ice cream to turn out and be a kidnapper to be a really small percentage. Not once did it occur to my 7-year-old self that the only reason for someone to stop and offer me such in the first place would be for nefarious purposes. So when I got home, I really didn't think much about it after that point. I didn't even tell my parents. I would have if he ever came back, but he never did to my knowledge. This is where the story could end, and for a long time, it did. But unfortunately, the truest evil lives within us all, and that evil never dies. Days progressed into weeks, and into years. We moved away, then, a few years later, we moved back. I finished school while living on that old, dead-end dirt road, graduating from the district high school, and made many friends. I honestly rarely thought about that day with the van, as nothing ever came of it. But when I did, my thoughts always went to the same place. You see, it's a small dead-end road, like I said, and most everyone knew everyone on it. Now, as a child, I didn't, so when I didn't recognize the man, or his white vehicle, I didn't think much of that either. After all, I didn't know everyone that lived on that stretch of gravel, and just thought him to be a neighbor I had never met before, as there were a few. But as I got older, and I made the friends that I mentioned, I did get to know more people on that road. In fact, I learned of every person who lived there. And every time I thought of this memory man, I would think to myself that I still had never found out where he lived. Of course, I realized that he likely didn't live there, and that maybe he really was up to no good. But again, I rarely thought about it, as nothing ever happened. To me, anyway. Now, I'm grown. I've raised children of my own, and my tastes have gone from horror fiction to now include stories of true and terrible crimes as well. And it is this thought and hobby that has pulled me back into this fray again, and has started me down yet another path of dark research that I didn't want to take. But hearing about true accounts of kidnapped and brutalized people left in slumps and treated like trash, or kept in captivity for years of enjoyment through depravity and sadism, it's made me appreciate all that I have. And like always, this memory of my past, something that rarely surfaces for one reason or another, has floated to consciousness. Only this time, I dug deeper. I began to wonder what depravity I had actually escaped. It has become clear to me, the adult version of me, that I likely narrowly avoided a fate worse than death itself. I'm not a big person. I never was. Even as a 7-year-old child, I was the third shortest person in my class, and I had a very skinny and thin frame to go along with it. Looking back with an educated and objective mind, this man likely mistook me for a little girl, and only when he pulled up alongside me did he realize that I wasn't. Conceding to at least try and coax me into his vehicle at the very least, since he had stopped anyway, I'm sure he deemed me a good enough target of opportunity to at least do that much. But when I refused, he likely drove away in search of the prey he was originally looking for, not willing to put in the effort of getting out and trying to grab me when I was never his original true target. And even though I always assumed he lived on that road, personal reflection and memory reminds me he only offered to take me to his house. He never actually said that he lived nearby. And yes, I'm making a lot of conjecture here and jumping to a lot of conclusions, but these are scenarios I've been pondering over for days now, and honestly, these seem like the most likely explanation. The truth is, terrible things can happen anywhere. Whether you're on vacation in a first world country, in a bustling city, at a public event, or in the middle of rural Middletown nowhere. And while I pondered these grim thoughts and more, I also couldn't help but prod further, reasoning that if this man had tried abducting me and didn't get his way, it's likely he didn't just stop and go home and give up, which has led me to a whole new era of inquiry. This is how I've returned to where I said I would never be again. It's something I wanted to put away, have tried, but it's already too late. Susquehanna County is a pretty safe place to live statistically, and news from the 80s is hard to find online without subscriptions, and without anything that seemed relevant. I was about to do just that, stop researching and put this behind me again. But yesterday, I looked outside the county line, to a place not very far away from where I used to live, and what I found disturbs me to my very core. I honestly want to dig up more information before I report on anything more, but to put it bluntly, I should have told my parents. I don't know if I was this guy's first attempt at an abduction or his last, but I don't think I was either, and from what I can tell, he's never been caught, and these cases are unsolved. Everything I've explained here is 100% true, and marks the beginning of something greater than it was when it started. There could be a victim's family out there, looking for answers that maybe only I can help provide. For the foreseeable months, I'll be looking into everything I can find on this matter, and I plan to release everything I learn here, for you and for myself as sort of a personal video log. If you have any thoughts, I'd like to hear them, so please leave a comment below. I'll check back soon. Sabian, out.
So, if you're wondering, yes, this was a 100% true account of something that happened to me as a child. From here, I intend to uncover more about the truth. I will soon reveal it to you all. But if you can't wait that long, come back for more fictional fear next weekend. And until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday.
Social media can be very unpredictable, especially regarding horror content. If this content gets removed, all new content will be simultaneously presented on various websites provided in the description to this video. Make sure to follow me in other digital spaces so that you never miss out on the terror. Also, if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment and hit the like button. It helps the channel a lot. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy what's here, consider hitting that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you never miss an upload. Writing is a dream of mine, and it's all of you that make that dream come true.